Yeah, that's NOAA 43. Hurricane hunters, of course, we certainly appreciate their service, and the NOAA aircraft, they're out there, and the reconnaissance aircrafts, they run these missions. That's inside the eye, already seeing an eye with this thing of Helene, and it's quite interesting how quickly this has developed, and this is going to be a bad system here.
Yeah, it's supposed to strengthen really fast, especially as it continues to move through the Gulf. And as of right now, possibly could strengthen into a Category 4 before making landfall.
Yeah, Category 4. You know, Lauren, you have a lot of memories of Valdosta. You're from that area down there, and what we saw happen in that part of Georgia.
Yeah, especially in southwest Georgia. Michael was so prolific in the damage it brought farther inland, and so that's a concern. I mean, I remember growing up, we would have tropical storms come through. They just come through, go about their merry way. We'd get out of school, and we didn't have virtual school, which was nice. But there is a concern, especially in this area. They have seen 3 landfall hurricanes in the Big Bend in less than a year's time. So they really need a break, and I don't think we're going to be getting that here from Helene.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we're talking Cat 4 hurricane possibly at landfall. This is what it looks like right now. I mean, this is a huge storm. Looking at it from space and that eye becoming well defined, and what happens here is kind of like a top spinning. As it continues to spin, you start to see that center sort of pull away, and it's kind of like a machine of its own. When you have these tropical systems like this, what happens in the center is the air starts to sink. So you actually have stable conditions right there. Well, not stable conditions, but you can have a little void in the middle. That's why we see that eye become exposed in the middle of these hurricanes. But this is a powerful system, and it's going to intensify through tonight. The latest advisory puts this very close. Notice the track. It actually shifted a bit further to the west today, and that now includes Tallahassee. Over here you have Apalachicola, Mexico Beach, Port St. Joe, Panama City, and Laguna Beach. That's all going to be right in this area over here. So for the, I know with Michael, it was the eastern part as you get into the historic downtown part of Panama City. That's where we saw a lot of that damage last time, and those areas could have some of those stronger winds as this moves north. But as you can see down into South Georgia, Category 1, and it continues north. The Hurricane Center, we're now seeing those tropical storm warnings. They do include some of our eastern counties, but the track brings us very close to Atlanta, so there will be some big impacts there. So now we're seeing Cherokee, also Cleburne, Randolph, and Chambers County under tropical storm warnings. And I just want to stress here, this is mostly the greatest impacts from Helene will actually happen across the eastern part of the state. And in fact, far southeast Alabama under some hurricane warnings, so places like Dothan could actually deal with some of those hurricane force winds. So we're talking East Alabama for the greatest impacts. That's why we had the first alert weather day. It's not for the entire area, but mostly for the eastern part of the area. Further west you go, there'll be a chance for a few showers. It's going to be breezy out there. I mean, those winds are going to pick up, and that's going to actually make it feel very nice through tomorrow night into the day on Friday. So we'll still have those breezy conditions across our area. So again, radar right now, we're catching some nice breaks out there. We do have flood watches now in effect as we go through tonight and into the day for tomorrow. Here's a look at those first alert weather headlines. And as we look ahead, wind gusts topping 30 miles per hour to the east. And we're watching those impacts also along the Gulf Coast.
We certainly are, Wes, but let's talk about those impacts here at home. We have a flood watch in effect that went in effect this afternoon. This doesn't expire until Friday morning. And notice what areas are highlighted, mainly East Alabama, stretching from Coleman all the way to Cherokee County, down towards Chilton County, and even Chambers and Randolph County. So giving you all that first alert for that greatest possibility of that flood threat. And this is all going to come after Hurricane Helene makes landfall. So here's a look at those tropical threats as far as breaking down what areas see the greatest threat for major flooding. Notice you can see that East Alabama has that greatest threat highlighted in red. More of our central counties could see moderate flooding, and areas further to the west, more localized flooding than anything. You definitely want to make sure you have already put your preparations in place. Tie down any loose outdoor objects because those winds will also be a main issue. But again, those greatest threats will be along the coast, of course, parts of Georgia and parts of Florida. And that's the area that can also also see the greatest chance for tornadoes. Here's a look at those active watches and warnings. Tropical storm warning in effect for our far eastern counties. But I want you to check these scenes out from Mexico earlier today after Helene brought heavy rain and strong winds to Cancun and surrounding areas. Lightning seen flashing in the sky this morning as the storm passed the country's coast.
And already seeing those impacts down on the Yucatan, Tania. So, of course, we have big questions about what could happen here a little closer to home. Well, the impacts, unfortunately, certainly look worse over in Georgia, where they are going to be closer to the highest impacts with Helene. What I want to show you is this current satellite loop of Helene. And what we've been noticing here over the past few hours, we're beginning to see that eye, as Wes noticed, beginning to form as it moves out over the open water of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, it's moving fairly quickly for a tropical system to the north at 12 miles per hour. But what I want you to not discount about Helene is just how large it is. As we look at how wide it is across, over 1,000 miles, if you take into account the entirety of the system. That's why not only is this storm dangerous, just because it's going to be strengthening as it goes through the eastern Gulf of Mexico, but it's also the size of the storm is going to lead to greater impacts. And that especially is going to be felt along the Big Bend of Florida. We've gotten in an updated storm surge, and you can see around the Tampa Bay area up to 9 feet of surge. But then we go a little closer inland to the Florida Big Bend. You've got a concave coastline. You've got a large storm, which already contributes to more surge. And then this area along the Florida Big Bend has a very shallow continental shelf. So right now, the peak surge forecast up to 15 to 20 feet. That's extending from Apalachicola all the way down to Cedar Key. A very dangerous situation for our friends along the coast. But then we're also going to see a situation where this storm is moving quickly. So Helene will not have time to weaken, which is why you could see gusts in order of 110 miles per hour as far as South Georgia. So a very dangerous situation. This will actually be, as I mentioned earlier, the third hurricane to hit Florida's Big Bend in the past 13 months. State leaders are doing what they can to make sure everyone is ready for before and after the storm. This includes making sure food is available for people after the storm, and it's something people in the Big Bend are becoming accustomed to.
Same song, different dance. It's unfortunate. These folks have been through so much, and I just pray for all the families and during this time. It's just a terrible time for these families.
Emergency management continues to stress those mandatory evacuation orders, saying they do not want people stranded and they will not be sending first responders out until it's safe for them to do so. Well, AlDOT announcing today that highways along South Alabama are open for those evacuating the path of Hurricane Helene from Florida. So they're designating at least a dozen roadways, as you can see on the map, coming north or west out of Florida, as those routes you can also see on the map. AlDOT also ordering a halt to non-emergency lane restrictions or lane closures on all state, U.S. and interstate highways. This will not apply to those construction projects that already have lane restrictions in place. And though we could certainly have some impacts here at home in Alabama, especially those areas to the east, the impacts still look much greater next door in Georgia. I spoke with Todd Hamill, a hydrologist with the Southeast River Forecast Center, where he explained why Helene could lash the Peach State with such a powerful punch. So can you tell me why this system is so different from maybe just quote unquote an ordinary tropical system coming through Georgia? Every tropical system is different, but what are y'all's primary concerns with Helene?
Well, there's a couple of different things. And the first thing is that there is a front that is draped across the southeast right now. And so the storm is still down in the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. And we're getting rain ahead of the front or ahead of the storm as it moves in. And so because of that, it's kind of setting us up so that we're getting rain and potential flooding even before the storm ever affects our area. Then once the storm moves to the area and we already have some flooding in place, then we could add that much more rain to that flooding in parts of the southeast. And because it's getting this far inland, all the way up into the mountains of Georgia, we could be impacted from Florida all the way up through the Carolinas.
And we were just noting here in the First Alert Weather Center, we were looking at some of the updated forecast data and showing specifically across northeast Georgia, getting into parts of north central Georgia, even like around the Athens, eastern Atlanta metro area. There is such a high risk for flooding. Can you kind of explain the terrain for maybe our viewers here who aren't familiar with that area?
Well, sure. You get up as you get further north into Georgia, you have more relief in the area, a bit more mountains, a mountainous area, and water when it hits flatter ground, when it's closer to the coast, it tends to spread out. And but when it gets to those, we get fast-moving water. It moves to those rivers very quickly, and especially once we get up into the mountains tend to enhance the rainfall, and so that becomes a place we become more concerned about. And also around the cities. When rain falls around the cities and in urban areas, it tends to run off much more quickly, and we can get flash flooding in those areas. So we have to watch those, be very careful in those areas and in driving through those areas so that we don't have any deaths.
So we are less than 48 hours out now from the main impacts from this event. How are you all preparing your communities that you serve ahead of Helene?
Well, our office serves kind of more of a region. And so we work with, we do an internal, we get our staff ready to go 24 hours. We typically don't work 24 hours, but we start working 24 hours. And so that we have the staff available to be able to answer questions and be able to get the forecasts out. And then we work with our local forecast offices all across the Southeast, because they're the ones who work with the locals, the emergency managers, and the people that are getting that information so that they have the best information to make decisions to do. Then we also work with our partners, the U.S. Corps of Engineers, Army Corps of Engineers, who manage the dams in the area, so that we're on the same page. They know what water is coming into their reservoirs, and they let us know what's going to be released. Power companies, the U.S. Geological Survey, who maintains all the gauges across the Southeast. So there's a large group of people that we coordinate with on a regular basis, but especially now before a storm, to make sure we're all on the same page, and we're communicating before the event, during the event. And this event isn't going to happen when the storm gets out of here. The event's not just going to be over, it's going to continue for a while.
Hey, welcome back into Weather Extra. I've lowered the rain chances for this evening because we're just not seeing a lot of rain right now on the radar. So if you are about to head out, we'll keep that 30% chance in there for some of those areas to the far east and southeast. But right now, we're in good shape, temperature-wise in the 60s. Now, tomorrow and late tonight into tomorrow, we'll start to see some of that rain coming back. Again, the greater chance of that, some of those eastern locations. West Alabama, we still could see a few showers tomorrow, but I still think the highest rainfall probably could see over 4 inches. You get over around places like Anniston for tomorrow and into the evening hours. But the good news is this is going to time out perfectly for the weekend. One thing to keep in mind here, there's going to be some big impacts around the Atlanta area. A lot of rain, a flooding threat, some gusty winds, likely some flight delays. So if you have maybe friends or family coming in for game day weekend, have a flight, just check ahead, because I know we have a lot of connecting flights there between Birmingham and Atlanta. But looking at the kickoff temperature, it's going to feel nice on Saturday. Auburn showing 80 at kickoff, but those temperatures will improve. You can see around 79 degrees there around 6:30. So as we look at the kickoff weather, we got some nice conditions here coming up. Just a small chance for a shower. Couldn't have timed it out better with respect to those weekend plans. But this tropical system comes as the Alabama State Parks Division is prepared to take the evacuees impacted from Hurricane Helene. They're encouraging online reservations to go to the website that's shown on the screen, and guests can also call 1-800 Ala Park, ALAPARK, with further questions. And weather-ready teams, they're ready to assist at all 21 Alabama state parks.
Well, still ahead, we talk about your upcoming weekend forecast. We're also going to take you beyond the 7-day. Plus, we talk about how extreme weather events are impacting crops across the country. We'll be right back. You're watching First Alert Weather Extra.
All right, welcome back into Weather Extra. Another review from space of Hurricane Helene, and this will continue to intensify through tonight and grow into a powerful Category 4 hurricane before making landfall. The track today, it shifted the cone from the Hurricane Center. You can see they shifted that a bit further to the west. Now, this is Panama City, and Laguna Beach is in this area right here. You go even further to the west there, you get into Destin, and then over towards Pensacola areas. There's a chance that we could see on the western side of this some gusty winds. We could have some winds over 40, 50 miles per hour there, reaching some of those areas. If it does track, of course, a bit further to the west, we could see some more direct impacts for some of those places, Panama City over to Destin. So we will be watching that throughout tonight and into tomorrow. This is all evolving quickly, but the one thing about it, we've been seeing this coming for over a week. The models have done a great job on telling us that we could have a tropical system here. What's just so interesting is that this is going to follow almost a path very similar to Hurricane Michael and almost the same speed here. It's going to be a fast mover as it moves to the north. You remember talking about Mexico Beach. This one looks to maybe make a landfall not far from there between Tallahassee, Mexico Beach, and then as it tracks inland, still a hurricane. Places like Auburn may have some winds there, nearing hurricane force wind gust as we go through the overnight and into Friday morning. And in the Atlanta area, a lot of rain, a lot of wind. Certainly going to be see some nasty weather there tomorrow night. Could have some flooding issues with rain totals topping 4 inches for some of those areas through Friday. But what are we talking about? We mentioned a Category 4 hurricane. This is our yearly refresher of the Saffir-Simpson scale, and you can see the Category 4 level, 130 to 156 mile per hour sustained winds possible, and of course that can result in catastrophic damage. One of the things here, we're seeing storm surge that could be as high as 20 feet across that Bend region of Florida once this makes a landfall. That landfall is going to happen around this time tomorrow, so we'll be tracking that here. Pinnacle Motorsports, just one of our sky vision views. This is what we're seeing across most of our state right now. We actually have some nice weather at the moment out there tonight. Feels nice little breeze, and through tomorrow morning we stay mainly dry. We will start to see some showers though coming back. Most of what we see tomorrow is related to Helene, and you can see by the afternoon where most of that sets up. You can see it sets up across the eastern part of the state. We might not see much rain at all across West Alabama. We just get the clouds, a nice breeze out there, places like Tuscaloosa during the day. We head into Friday morning and that starts to lift out, but what's happening here is Helene's moving north and it's just making a big loop all the way around us. It'll actually get wrapped in, sort of ingested into a disturbance back to the northwest, and that's what's going to rotate back through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and bring a few scattered showers. So kind of an interesting setup across our area. Not a heavy rain for this weekend. I still think we'll be in good shape for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Just a 20% chance for a few showers with high temperatures in the 70s.
All right, everyone, we are actually looking now at what could be, I wouldn't say anything potent at this point, but we're still several days out. This is us looking at one of our GFS models, still seeing some active weather in the Gulf of Mexico as we head into the first weekend of October. And if I could get Wes to click ahead for me on this one, that'll bring up beyond the 7-day so we can talk a little bit more about what's happening in the days ahead. There we go. Okay, so of course, first alert weather days in effect Thursday and Friday. We'll see highs only in the 70s. You still need to make sure you're putting in those preparations, but let's move beyond the 7-day. We're watching the first full weekend of October just because one model is not in agreement just yet. And of course, there's still plenty of time to fine-tune those rain and storm chances in the days ahead and what's happening in the tropics. But we just saw something that caught our attention. So hurricane season is definitely not over. But as of right now, next week, we'll see temperatures starting off in the low 80s, but then eventually some more fall-like conditions with afternoon highs in the 70s, holding on to partly cloudy skies. So after tomorrow and Friday, we'll get some breaks from some wet weather as we bring in next week. But a new study shows that a growing trend of extreme weather events such as extreme showers and droughts are what researchers are calling the new norm. Fox's News' Ted Lindner takes a closer look at the impacts these events are having on the nation, especially when it comes to a vital cash crop that many rely on.
While weather can be unpredictable, new research from The Ohio State University is spelling out a gloomy forecast for the future.
Our study was looking at precipitation extremes, so either 3-month droughts or 3-month wet periods, what we call pluvials, to see if there have been trends over the last, looking back roughly 1,000 years through the present.
From their findings, scientists say the severe droughts that impact the Southwest and the more intense rainstorms that swamp the Northeast are now the new modern norms millions should come to expect. Adding these patterns may only become worse in the future. Meanwhile, the research indicates that states in the middle of the country should brace for a mixture of extremes.
So in general,
All right, we're looking at the newest 7 o'clock intermediate advisories in, and still 85-mile-per-hour winds, but expecting a major hurricane tomorrow to approach the Gulf Coast.